Hi everyone, my name is Ibran, a third semester student from English department at Budge College. So the intro is over. Let me ask you a question. When we hear the word monster, who do we imagine? A villain? A criminal? Someone clearly evil? But what if I told you the most dangerous monsters in history did not look like monsters at all? They were world leaders, politicians, business people, and normal people like us who woke up, went to work, believing what we are doing is right thing. Think about how things usually start. A rumor spreads, maybe it's a message, maybe a short clip, maybe just something someone said. There's no proof yet, but people don't wait and nobody really asks questions. Slowly, people begin to get upset. Not because they know the truth, but because everyone else seems upset. And at some point, hurting someone starts to feel reasonable, even necessary, like the right response. That's a valid reason how societies break down. People stop asking, is this true? And start asking, so what do we do about it? And that small shift is enough to change everything. This video is about that moment. The moment ordinary people cross a line without even realizing it. And what's scary is this is not a modern problem. A writer warned us about this almost 100 years ago. Now, let me take you to a small town in the American South and to a short story written by William Faulkner called Dry September. The story begins with a rumor where people start saying that a black man named Will Mice has done something wrong to a white woman, Miss Minnie Cooper. But Faulkner never tells us what actually happened and whether anything even happened at all. And that absence is important. There's no proof, no clear witness, just words passing from one person to another. And somehow that turns to be enough for an entire town. One man, Hoxo the barber, tries to stop the violence. He says there's no evidence. He represents reason and morality, but his voice is weak compared to the anger of the crowd. The others ignored him. This shows how hard it is to stand against injustice when everyone else supports it. Will Mice is taken away by the mob. Faulkner never clearly shows his death, but it is strongly implied that he is killed. The lack of detail makes the act even more cruel and meaningless. His life ends because of a lie and racial hatred. This is why I don't think Faulkner is interested in proving who is guilty or innocent in a legal sense. That question almost faded into the background. What he seems far more concerned with is showing how easily violence becomes normal when a society is already damaged at its core. Dry September is not really about a single crime or a single victim. It's a diagnosis of a collective mindset and a warning about what happens when fear takes the place of thinking and when belonging to a crowd becomes more important than listening to one's own conscience. To understand the violence in Dry September, we have to see how it actually starts. Not with feats or weapons, but within the mind. First, rumor replaces truth. No one in the story knows what really happened between Will Mice and Miss Minnie, but the rumor sounds believable enough, so people accept it without resistance. Once a story is accepted without proof, truth slowly becomes irrelevant, and from that point onward, facts no longer have much power. After that, fear begins to replace thinking. The men in the town are not calm and reflective. They feel that something important has been threatened, whether it is social order, pride, or control. Fear creates a sense of urgency, where thinking feels slow and acting feels necessary. And when people reach that state, asking questions start to feel like weakness rather than responsibility. Then the group replaces individual conscience. Many of these men, on their own, might hesitate or even doubt what they are doing, but together they feel stronger and more certain. Responsibility spreads so thin inside the crowd that no single person feels fully accountable. And violence becomes easier precisely because no one feels completely guilty.
Don't turn back at! We're just...
This is where McLendon becomes important. He never argues over facts or asks what really happened, because for him, those details do not matter. He gives orders, pushes the group forward, and turns hesitation into momentum. His logic is simple but dangerous. When power feels threatened, violence feels logical, and taking action itself becomes the proof that he is right. This is the lesson Faulkner is quietly teaching throughout the story. Violence does not begin with anger, because anger comes later. Violence begins at the moment people stop asking questions for themselves. Faulkner reinforces all of this through the setting. The story unfolds during an unbearably hot and dry September, and the heat works as more than just background weather. It represents pressure and anger slowly building inside the people who refuse to pause and think. And anger without reflection always finds a way to explode. This is where my own perspectives comes in. When I think about violence, I don't see it as something that suddenly appears. I see it as something that is inherited. And there comes the concept called the cycle of hatred, which says that hatred is rarely created in a single moment. Instead, it is passed down over time. Where one generation suffers, the others inherit the pain. And eventually, that pain is expressed as violence that gets labeled as justice. Violence in that sense does not end conflict. It simply trains the next generation to continue it with more efficiency. But at the same time, there is another possible response to pain. One that feels much harder but far more honest. Some people eventually realize that revenge does not heal anything and that seeing enemies everywhere only traps you inside endless conflict. When a person reaches that understanding, they realizes how pointless most arguments arguments truly are, and they stop engaging in any conflict because choosing not to act on anger takes more control than acting on it. What makes violence truly dangerous though is certainty. When people become fully convinced that they are right and they are acting in self-defense or to protect the peace, once that happens, even extreme violence feels reasonable and even necessary. People stop seeing themselves as capable of doing harm because in their minds they are protecting something important. When we connect this back to Dry September, the pattern is exactly the same. The people involved do not see themselves as cruel or unjust. They believe they are defending order, morality, and society itself, and that belief is what allows them to act without guilt. Now, let me explain how I think about this. The moment information reaches us through rumors, clips, or second-hand stories, the most dangerous thing we can do is act immediately. Acting without verification is often praised as being bold or decisive, but in reality, it is reckless. And harm caused by ignorance does not become less harmful just because the intention felt right. What makes this worse is how responsibility changes inside a crowd. When people act alone, they feel accountable. When they act together, responsibility is spread so thin that no one feels fully guilty. Everyone tells themselves the same thing. I didn't do this, we did. That is how people escape their own conscience without even realizing it. Anger accelerates this process. Anger itself is normal. It shows up before logic has time to respond. The danger begins when anger starts giving orders. Once that happens, instinct feels weak and impulse feels powerful. Hurting someone stops feeling cruel and starts feeling necessary. This is why mob thinking is so destructive. It removes pause, erases individual accountability, and makes people feel lighter, almost weightless in their decisions. When thinking slows down, responsibility does not disappear. It just gets ignored. And that is the real tragedy. Not that people feel anger or fear or outrage, but that they stop carrying the weight of what their actions actually do to another human being. So what does all of this leave us with? That violence is not first a moral failure, but a mindset failure, because long before any blood is spilled, thinking has already stopped. The truth is, violence does not start with fists or weapons. It starts when people stop thinking, when they stop asking questions, when they just go along with what everyone else is doing. That's when things start to go wrong. Anger and certainty makes people feel justified even when they are about to do something terrible. That is how the crowd takes over, and that's how a normal person can end up doing something monstrous.